Hey, what's up, YouTube? This is Barn11970, and thank you guys for watching this video. We're going to do some educating today. For those of you who watch my channel regularly, you'll know I haven't made a video in a little bit. I am actually become a man on a mission when it comes to law, truth, and educating people and learning how we've all been lied to. Now, the majority of what I'm going to be teaching has to do with the United States of America Corporation. So if you live outside of the United States, this may not apply to you. The one thing I could suggest is knowledge is power. The more you study, the more you're going to realize how the system uses words that we take for granted to trick you into basically giving up your sovereign rights. We were all born free. We're just trained from childbirth to think otherwise. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples, not to show anyone's ignorance, because I was just as ignorant, and there's nothing wrong with that. Ignorance just means we haven't learned something yet. But to show in a way that will make you remember and never forget again. So when you hear politicians say certain words, you're going to know what they mean and not what you assume they meant. So the reason I haven't made videos in a couple of days, probably about a week or so, is I've been spending, on average, between 14 and 16 hours a day, every day, and I will continue to do so, learning law, common law, contract law, basically how the government works. Legal definitions, which are called legalese. So if you ever hear anyone use the term legalese, that's not some made-up word. It's actually what legalese means is legal definitions of words that you think are just common English words. So let's go over a couple of, I'm going to do a couple of little quizzes. And what I want you to do is, if you have to pause this, please pause it, but I want you to go get a pen and paper. So I'll ask a couple of questions, and let's see what your responses are. And then if you're incorrect, I will correct them, and you will learn that way very quickly of how we're all being lied to. So let's start with the first one. Again, if you need to pause this, please do. But once you come back and you have your pen and paper, I want you to write down the answer, and then you could pause it each time to write your comment if you want to answer on a comment. So the first question. Okay, this is going to be true or false. The United States of America is a democracy. So I want you to pause that. You can answer your question on a comment as well. So you write down, this is what I want you to do. If you write true, you don't have to write anything else in the comment. If you write false, I want you to explain why you believe so. Okay, so pause this if you have to. Okay, now, here is the question again. The United States of America is a democracy. True or false? Hopefully you've paused it because we want people to learn. And a lot of times we learn through our mistakes. The correct answer of this statement is false. We are not a democracy. We are a republic. And people really need to know the difference between a democracy and a republic. That is why when you give your Pledge of Allegiance, which it stands, one nation under God, it's all that, it's into the republic for which it stands, not to the democracy. A democracy is a way of enslaving the people, and I'll give you in a nutshell what the difference between the two is. A democracy is basically mob rule. In other words, the minority never gets a vote to be able to live life the way they want. It is always the majority of people dictating what everyone else can do. So it's basically mob rule. A republic is when you decide what you can and cannot do, and no one else has the authority to tell you how to live. Unless, of course, you are infringing on the rights of other people or trying to create harm. So in other words, in a democracy, the majority rule says you cannot drive over 55 miles an hour. If you do and you get pulled over, you're subject to a ticket. That is mob rule. Under a republic, you can drive 90 miles an hour. As long as you are not hurting anyone, you have the right to travel and any way you want. That's why there's no speed limit to walking. So basically, in a nutshell, if you had a choice between a democracy and a republic, you would always pick republic, because then you decide what you want, not some other faction of people. Okay, so that's the first one. Now, this is going to seem a little weird when you see this question, so bear with me. There is a purpose behind it. Question number 2. True or false? The United States of America is a democracy. Pause and give your answer. Again, if you write true, just put true. If you write false, please explain why. So pause it if you need to. Okay. Now, before I give the answer, I'm going to show you. This was the original question, the first one. Okay, look at it very carefully. Now, this is the question I just asked. It looks the same, doesn't it? Actually, it's not. Because when you study law, you know that there are symbols that have meaning in law. And I'll give you an example of the reason for this. The reason they use symbols in law is for the majority of our history, people could not read and write. So they had to make laws for people to be able to understand it who couldn't read. Excuse me. So I'll give you an example. If you are driving down the road and all of a sudden you see a light go from the color green to the color red, what does that tell you to do? Well, it tells you to stop. Now, it doesn't say the word stop. It doesn't tell you to stop. So you only know it through the symbolism. That's what that is. So if you notice these two, the difference between the two is the United States of America here is in all capital letters, and the United States of America here has only uppercase first letters. The rest is in lowercase. Now, when something is in all capital letters, in law, that states that this is a corporation, a fictional character. This is why we have presidents who run the country, because only presidents can run corporations. Now, the answer to this one is true. The reason being is, when you are under the corporation and you are under the jurisdiction of the corporation, you have to follow their rules. So if the United States of America Corporation says that its citizens are under a democracy, well, if you do not challenge that, then silence is the same as compliance, which means you agree to their terms. Now, what does that mean? Silence means compliance. Let's say you and your friends go out to dinner one night, and at the end of the dinner, you decide to get dessert, and you buy a big thing of pie. And you're all slicing up the pie, and at the end, there's one piece left. And you say out loud, I'm going to take that last piece of pie. Now, you're actually issuing a contract. It's not one written down, but you are making a trust. So you are basically making a claim for something. Now, the other people at that table have choices. They can say, yes, okay, you can have it. No, you can't. Let's split it up. Or they can say nothing at all. Well, if they say nothing at all, it is the same in law as them agreeing with your term. In other words, you've made a claim for that pie, you've created a trust, and no one disputed it. So because no one disputed it, under legal terms, that pie becomes yours because their silence is the same as agreements. So be very careful about that when it comes to law and when it comes to how we're governed. Because if a government makes a statement and it is not contested, under the law, it is the same as you agreeing. So let's go to another thing. Again, this is another thing you might need to pause. And I want you to write your comment under the answer. The question is, are you always a citizen? If no, please explain why. And again, pause this if you have to. Okay, so the question is, are you always a citizen? Or, better yet, do you always want to be a citizen? The answer is actually no. Because if you know what the definition of citizen is in law, you would really think twice about it, and you would really start to question the politicians in the world as they call us all citizens. Well, again, they're assuming because you're not contesting it, then you must agree, because when you don't contest, it's the same as compliance. So a definition in a nutshell of a citizen has two requirements. One is you have to be born of that nation, or two, you have to be subject to the jurisdiction of that country. In other words, if you're called a U.S. citizen, what that's saying is that you were born in the United States and you are subject to the jurisdiction of the United States. In other words, they are telling you that you're a citizen, which means you have to follow their rules. And if you don't contest that and say, no, I'm a sovereign free person, well, then you're automatically assumed to be a citizen. You agree with it without your contesting it. and you have to follow their rules. So in essence, you don't want to be a citizen. You want to be a free man, under natural law. So that's where they get you. When people, for example, are looking for their civil rights, that falls under the jurisdiction of a citizen, which means you have to follow their rules. You don't want civil rights, you want your natural rights. And there is a difference. So you actually want to be a human, or a natural human. Natural people, not a citizen. Citizen means you're under control. So the next time when the president or a governor or any politician calls out and says, we need the votes, or we need the people behind us, the citizens of the United States, well, they're talking to all the slaves who comply. You're not arguing, you're not contesting. So you pick your governments. Okay, here's another one. And you could, again, either write it on a paper or pause it and put your answer in a comment before you hear the answer. I want honesty. This is how you learn. What is the plural of person? Pause it and give us your answer. The plural of person, I bet many people put the word people. That's incorrect. The plural of person is persons. Now, the reason I say that is because of the fact this is how they trick you. Because in law, the definition of people, or I'm sorry, of a person, is a corporation, a non-fictional entity. So if you claim yourself to be a person, well, then you are saying, without you knowing, because ignorance is no excuse for the law, that you are subject under the jurisdiction of a citizen. In other words, you're a slave. You're a non-fictional character. You're a corporation. That is why if you look on your driver's license, birth certificate, or any government certificate, your name is in all capital letters. That's not you. That's a fictional character they create with your name to deceive you, which basically means all governments are committing fraud. It's just since we don't contest it, that's how they get away with it. So, one more, and then we're going to end this, so just in case the video cuts. One more question. What is the singular word for people? Pause and write your comment. Okay. I guarantee you the majority of people said the singular word for people is person. That is not correct. The singular word for people is people. So again, if you say in court that you're a person, or you acknowledge the fact that you're a person, or you don't dispute the fact that they call you a person or a citizen, well, you're basically saying you agree to them saying you're a slave. And this is what they did in the Civil War. When they freed the slaves, as they say they did, they went and actually got a worse deal if you think about it, because the slaves went from private slaves, who the people took care of them, whether they were cruel to them or not. They still gave them homes, they still fed them, they still gave them clothes, they provided things for them. But they went from a free slave to a public slave, which means that person still has to follow the rules because they're obliging to the jurisdiction of the country and the government, but now they have to get their own food, they have to get their own homes, they have to buy their own clothing. So the government now has the control of the people without actually have to providing for them. So I'm going to keep this video short. I'm going to be doing more videos to teach people what's going on in this world. Because if you don't learn how things are, you are easily deceived. And we've all been there, including myself. I'm getting to the point now where I'm not going to stand by and allow these things to happen anymore. So I'm going to continue to spread truth. So if you appreciate this video and you've learned something from it, please like and share it, because I'm going to do a lot more videos like this. It's time we all decide that we are free people, and if you choose to do nothing, you're choosing to agree with their dishonoring you, they're lying to you, they're deceiving you, they're tricking you. If you're tired of that, start learning the law. Start learning the real law. Learn common law. Learn about law of the land, natural law. Stop following their rules, because it's all a choice. You are a sovereign citizen of a republic, which means you dictate whatever you want to do as long as you do not harm or infringe the rights of another citizen, well, another human being. See, old habits die hard. This is why in school they don't teach civics. They teach social studies. They don't want you to know you have civic rights and civic freedoms and choice. So when you go to a court and they're trying to deceive you, if you don't know what language they're using, you fall under their jurisdiction, and that's why you have to do what they tell you. It's time to turn that table around against them. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.